What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So, for today, we will be talking about becoming self-assured through experience. Okay? Another way you can talk about self-assurance is confidence, but I use the term self-assured. It's because it's more about the internal state. Meanwhile, confidence a lot of the time is based on basically your experience in specific settings. Okay, but self-assuredness is just there regardless of the setting you're in. Okay, so maybe perhaps it's best to start off highlighting the difference between self-assuredness and confidence. So confidence is basically your attitude that you gain from experience or practice within a particular setting or domain. Okay, so let's say, for example, if you are an accountant or an engineer, the more you do accounting and engineering in practical settings, you become more confident at what you do. Alternatively, if you are going out on a lot of dates and learning to date women, you are getting in practice in terms of how to talk to women, gaining an understanding of what women value. You are basically figuring out what women like versus what they don't like and what's acceptable to you, and you're gaining experience there. So in these two settings, you are becoming more confident. Now, the confidence from being an accountant or an engineer does not translate to confidence in dating and vice versa. The reason for that is that you're basically gaining experience and that sort of comfort based on what you practice or the domain you're in. And that's where confidence differs from self-assuredness. Self-assuredness comes more from having the mindset and the aptitude of knowing that no matter what setting you're in, no matter what circumstance you're in or situation you're in, you have it handled. It comes down to really having this feeling of inner calm and quietness that comes from trusting yourself. Okay? And that's the difference between self-assuredness and confidence. The confidence you gain is based on practice. Okay? And the problem with that is when you enter a circumstance or situation where you didn't practice, you're not going to have confidence. However, self-assuredness is more of your mental frame, okay, your state of being, your understanding and acknowledgement that going into a circumstance or a situation, be it familiar or not, you are going to be okay. You're going to be okay because you know that you are going to figure it out, and you know that you are going to do all right. And even then, if you don't do all right, if you do not succeed, it's okay. All right. So it's having this inner peace, inner calm is what makes self-assuredness different from confidence. And like I said, you can get that inner calm with confidence, but it's dependent upon practice. Okay, and not just practice, but having a lot of positive experiences relative to negative experiences. So this is why confidence can be a very misleading concept in a way, because if you're a person where you don't have a lot of positive, affirming experiences, and instead you're getting a lot of negative and sort of dejecting experiences, then you're never gonna become confident. Okay? And a lot of that is dependent on situations, circumstances, and things outside of your control. But self-assuredness is not reliant on things outside of yourself. It's all about your inner work. Okay? It's about trusting yourself. It's about knowing that you're gonna pull through. It's about knowing that regardless of whether things happen right away or not, you've got this under control within yourself. It's about recognizing that while you cannot control things outside of yourself, you can control how you react to them based on your inner work and inner understanding of yourself. Okay? It's about trusting yourself. It's about having belief in yourself. It's about acceptance of all of your perfections and imperfections. It's about consciously and aggressively being aware of your shortcomings and acknowledging them and recognizing that you still have work to do. Okay? This way you're not caught by surprise. All right? That's another difference between confidence and self-assuredness, is that confidence is dependent on familiarity. It's dependent upon recognizable behaviors, circumstances, or situations. And when you're faced with a circumstance or a situation where you lack familiarity, your confidence starts to become shaken. However, self-assuredness is more about, again, your mental state, your outlook, your understanding of how things are, and having an acceptance. So even if you are faced with a situation or a circumstance that is unfamiliar, it doesn't shake you. It doesn't throw you off center. Instead, what happens is you become curious about it. You try to understand it. You try to figure it out, because even though you don't have the experience or the familiarity with this situation or circumstance, you have the mental frame of being curious and trying to figure it out, so you actually obtain that experience. Okay? So in that way, you don't really get thrown off center. Now, the reason you hear a lot about confidence versus self-assuredness is because it's easier to explain to people gaining confidence through practice versus explaining self-assuredness to people where they have to reframe or change their outlook. Okay? It's easier to recognize that you have the ability by doing versus actually having the understanding that you were always capable of doing something and that you can handle it. It's just a matter of time, okay, before you obtain it or achieve it. And the difference and the distinction is very subtle between both, but it makes a huge difference. It makes the difference between, your perseverance and persistence versus not having any. If I had to explain it other ways, is that confidence is context specific and comes with sort of an expiry date, versus self-assuredness is non-context specific and does not have an expiry to it. And the reason I mention expiry to is that if you're exposed to enough random, uncertain, varied situations, your confidence will carry you only so much, okay? Because again, confidence is based on familiar experience. And in the absence of familiar experience, most people just break down and collapse. However, if you have self-assuredness, mainly trust in yourself, that is going to carry you further in random and uncertain situations versus confidence. The other problem with confidence is that confidence tends to be very static, meaning that when you gain confidence in a specific domain and you figure out a process that works for you, because you know it works and you gain the confidence through repetition, you tend to be very resistant to change, adaptation, growth, and development, right? You become set in your ways. I mean, when you think about it, why wouldn't you? There is no incentive for you to really grow because whatever you're doing right now is working for you, and that's why you have your confidence. In cases where you're unsure of what's going on, that's where you become insecure or lacking in confidence, or you need to put more work. Now, what I like about self-assuredness is that it's very different from that. Regardless of whether you are comfortable with the situation or not, because your mindset is one of growth and trust in yourself and just overall comfort with yourself, you are much cooler, much rock-like in a way in terms of movability in the face of uncertainty and randomness. You have this outlook of figuring things out and figuring them as you go. Okay? There's no need for readiness, there's no need for the right conditions. You just know that everything is going to work out and everything is going to be all right. And that's really the distinction between self-confidence and self-assuredness. Now, they tend to be used interchangeably, but they're not really the same. Okay? One tends to be externally oriented, the other one is internally oriented. Okay? And that's the difference between both. All right, you guys, so I'm going to wrap it up here for today. As per usual, very much appreciate your time and attention, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.